Sega bring you your key to interactive multiplayer gaming. Get a life and get a Dreamcast.
If you're a Sega fan, the date of November 27th, 1998 will probably be etched into your mind. The day that Dreamcast was unleashed onto the Japanese public, rolling out with a meagre selection of launch titles, but impressing buyers nonetheless with Genki's port of the insanely popular Virtua Fighter 3 Team Battle, which sold on a 1-to-1 basis with those lucky enough to get a console at launch. However, there's no denying that in the retro community, rightly or wrongly, Western views take a precedence, and when it comes to the Dreamcast and each passing birthday, the spectre of 9999 is omnipresent. But the Dreamcast has another Western birthday, one which seems to get overlooked within the community, but is equally important, and that date is October 14th, 1999, the day that Dreamcast was released in Europe, and just like 27/11/98 and 9999, it has its own unique stories to share. So let's get into it. The Dreamcast really did have an unenviable task. So much was expected from the console and so much was riding on its success, yet decisions made years prior by Bernie Stolar had left Sega without a retail presence for the best part of 2 years. Sega's absence from the market allowed Sony to cement their position as the dominant brand in gaming, with the Nintendo 64 barely laying a glove on the PlayStation. By the time Dreamcast launched in the UK, Sony controlled an estimated 75% of the market, further highlighting the daunting task that faced Sega. That said, after the clumsy manner in which the Sega Saturn was launched in the West, Sega couldn't have done much more right when it came to the Dreamcast. In the US, the 9999 launch set a record at the time, with Peter Moore claiming that Dreamcast had had the most successful opening 24 hours in entertainment history, surpassing that of Star Wars Episode I: The Phantom Menace. The console was off to a flyer in the United States. Now all eyes turned to Europe. As Europe's largest gaming market, the UK was focal to Sega Europe's Dreamcast plans, with a 60 million war chest set aside for advertising. Sega also headhunted a new marketing chief, with Giles Thomas joining from MTV, where he had successfully launched the sister channel VH1. In an interview with Tom Charnock of the Dreamcast Junkyard back in December 2022, Giles recalls that he had no prior experience in the gaming industry. In fact, he said that he lost his gaming virginity, to use his words, while playing Tomb Raider on the PlayStation, a console that was gifted to him by then PlayStation executive Chris Meredith. However, the game consumed Giles' life for a period of time, and was a major factor in him accepting Philip Lay's pitch to join Sega, who by Giles' own admission he'd never even heard of. Philip Lay, of course, is one of the creative minds behind the UK's iconic "Do me a favour, plug me into a Sega." With the new team in place, it was time to get to work, and while Sega of America went with the It's Thinking approach for Dreamcast, adding a mystique to the machine's power and assuming artificial intelligence, Sega Europe went with a far more lifestyle brand of advertising, and, most of all, they were laser focused on online gaming. I mean, it made sense. The first console with online gaming out the box, delivering the core message of "we all play games, why don't we play together?" This message was at the forefront of early Dreamcast adverts, which showed everyday life events becoming competitive. Barbers who would race one another to finish their client's haircut first, and office workers who rushed down the flights of stairs to make it to the front door first. The ads finished with the now famous Dreamcast up to 6 billion players slogan, and we'll come back to that in a second. Of course, a major criticism of these adverts is that they perhaps focus too much on lifestyle and not enough on gameplay, showing only a snippet of gameplay at the end. I've personally always felt that Sega should have filled the ads with high quality gameplay to ram home the visual fidelity of the Dreamcast. In fact, I really think that Giles and his team missed a major opportunity to really ram home that leap in graphical performance because they were so focused on online gaming. But let's go back to the whole 6 billion players thing though, because the ad wouldn't last long. It was banned by UK advertising standards for false advertising, as well as being highlighted on consumer rights show Watchdog in February of 2000. You see, Dreamcast owners in the UK could only play online with other players in Europe, not worldwide.
Right, next The Sega Dreamcast, currently one of the hottest computer games, nearly 750,000 sold already, they're at £200 each. The big attraction, you get email and you can play online via the internet and challenge anyone, anywhere. Here's the ad.
We all play games. Why don't we play together? Dreamcast, up to 6 billion players.
6 billion, of course, being the population of the world, but you won't see that ad anymore. It's been suspended because it's not true. Anyone in this country who's bought a Dreamcast can't play online across the world, and, say Sega, can't say exactly when they'll be able to. Here's BQ.
It's the ultimate games console. State-of-the-art graphics, and most importantly, that option to play with billions of Dreamcast owners across the globe.
It even says it on the box. Multiplayer gaming on your TV. Just plug it into a telephone line, power it up, and wait for the competition.
Online gaming is a big selling point. Sega spent £2 million on their advertising campaign, but last month it was suspended. The broadcaster's advertising clearance centre said it was misleading.
When we phoned Sega as customers, they told us that online gaming should be available by the end of the first quarter. That's spring to you and me. But UK Dreamcast owners will only be able to play with other people in Europe, not worldwide, and not quite the 6 billion players they advertise.
Well, still a confusing picture tonight. Sega UK say there has always been a 4-phase plan, which is on target, which will be completed by the end of the year. But you won't see that on the front of your Dreamcast box. They also say they do plan to provide the original deal they promised, full online game playing by the start of the autumn. But if you ring the Sega helpline, you'll be told then you'll only be able to play Europe. In the meantime, we suggest a new guarantee for the front of the box.
In a further move to get the Dreamcast brand out there ahead of launch, Sega Europe sponsored 4 football teams, or soccer for our American friends, with the Dreamcast and Sega logos emblazoned on the home and away shirts of the teams. A press release by Sega Europe dated June 17, 1999 confirmed the financials of the deal, with Arsenal receiving $4 million a year from Sega over 3 years. Sega also sponsored Italian Serie A side Sampdoria and French League One side Saint Etienne, with La Liga's Deportivo La Coruña signing on later for a single season. Then Sega Europe CEO Jean-François Cession said at the time, "We are delighted to have concluded our first French and Italian sponsorship deals for the new Dreamcast console. With the help of these teams, we will launch Dreamcast throughout Europe." In hindsight though, using so much of the marketing budget in this manner made absolutely no sense, further highlighted by the fact that Dreamcast lacked a killer football game. Now, the Arsenal deal ran from season 1999-2000 until season 2001-2002. The Sampdoria and Saint Etienne deals ran from 99-2000 until 2000-2001, with Deportivo signing on for that single season, as I mentioned, for 2000-2001. When looking at the numbers and taking Sega's own press release at face value, these sponsorships cost Sega in the region of an eye-watering £32 million from the £60 million marketing budget. However, there was one major change to the Dreamcast console itself ahead of launching in Europe, and it's one that has caused 2 factions, for lack of a better word, within the Dreamcast community. Are you Team Blue Swirl or Team Orange Swirl? The intention, of course, was for Dreamcast to have the same logo in every region, but those plans would be altered in Europe thanks to German tech firm Tivoli, who used an orange swirl as the logo, and they do so to this day. So rather than risk any potential lawsuit and resulting negativity around the brand, Sega simply altered the colour to blue and the problem was solved. Sega hosted a launch party on September 5th, 1999 at the Commonwealth Institute in Kensington, with Jean-François Cession and Shoichiro Irimajiri as guest speakers, while cyberpunk-inspired stilt walkers stalked the dance floor. Sega also used the event as an opportunity to raise funds for Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital, donating £10 for every attendee who volunteered to have their head shaved, tying in nicely with the Dreamcast's barber ad. There would be one final hiccup in the European launch plans though, with the launch date changing from September 23rd to October 14th at pretty much the last minute. The blame for the change was put firmly at the door of BT, who were partnering with Sega to roll out the online facilities of Dreamcast in the region. Sega Europe had put so much emphasis on the online gaming aspect of Dreamcast that the thought of launching without the capabilities in place was unthinkable, and so rather than just go ahead, the launch was delayed by 2 weeks, but it didn't dampen spirits by any means. With the UK being the focal point of the European launch, 2 major retail chains in London became Dreamcast hubs. The Piccadilly Circus branch of the now defunct Tower Records, as well as Oxford Street's Virgin Megastore, which rebranded as the Sega Store for the night. Boxers Chris Eubank and Nigel Benn faced off at the Virgin Megastore on Ready to Rumble Boxing. It would be Eubank who would emerge victorious on Dreamcast though, just as he had the first time these once bitter rivals met back in November 1990. And once the dust had settled, he took off for the Sega Store at Piccadilly Circus in his American rig, branded with Dreamcast logos, causing traffic chaos in London along the way. In the hour leading up to the midnight launch, Sega organised for the Stiltwalkers from the September 5th party to parade the streets in the Piccadilly area, accompanied by tribal drummers as the Tower Records store prepared to open its tills. 100 branches of Electronics Boutique opened across the UK at midnight as well, who at the time were the largest gaming chain in the UK. And as proof of just how much the UK and European gaming market meant to Sega, the entire leadership team from Japan flew in for the launch, with Isa Uekawa, Shoichiro Irimajiri, Kazutoshi Miyake and Hidekazu Yukawa all in attendance. Selling for just £199.99, the cheapest games console launch price on record at the time, some 40,000 consoles had been pre-ordered in the UK alone. In total, across Europe on launch day, 100,000 Dreamcasts were sold, with the total standing at around 185,000 by the close of the opening weekend. 63,000 of those 185,000 consoles were sold in the UK. Across Europe, 350,000 pieces of software were sold, 90,000 additional controllers and 145,000 VMUs flew off of store shelves. Sonic Adventure and Sega Rally 2 were the clear favourites with gamers at launch, with 85,000 units and 75,000 units sold respectively. For logistical and marketing reasons, Sega split Europe into parts for the Dreamcast launch strategy. The first group of countries were those seen as priority markets: the United Kingdom, France, Germany and Spain, which received almost 100% of the marketing budget and the biggest percentage of available consoles, as well as full internet access. The second group consisted of Portugal, Ireland, Italy, Holland, Belgium, Luxembourg, Switzerland, Austria, Greece, Cyprus and the Nordic regions. In most of these countries though, there was little to no advertising due to Sega using most of the budget in the priority markets. There was also no internet access, and console shipments were so low in numbers that they sold out immediately with no restock until early 2000. Looking back, you've got to wonder what impact, if any, the various football sponsorships had on Dreamcast pre-orders and sales across Europe. Did seeing Thierry Henry with Dreamcast across his chest really contribute to those 40,000 pre-orders in the UK? As I said earlier, at a rough cost of £32 million for the 4 teams, it could easily be argued that the money would have been better spent promoting Dreamcast in all of Europe, rather than making the console a non-event in so many countries there. However, with so much focus on 9999 every year, it's really important to remember just how big the European launch was as an event, and most importantly, how much it meant to Sega, who flew in the Japanese leadership team to take in that UK launch night. Even with the lack of advertising in so many European nations, the launch in Europe was nothing short of a roaring success, but sadly, just like in the US, the interest wasn't long standing as gamers decided to wait it out for Sony's PlayStation 2.
Take Ben Jackson for instance. He used to be a big PlayStation fan.
Old technology.
But now it lays to rest as his attention's on the Dreamcast.
Hey! I've had the Dreamcast for quite a few months now, and when my mates come around, they're like, wow, those graphics are rad. Newer games like Soul Calibur, they're huge as well, so they're really good.
At the moment, Sega are having quite an easy time grabbing our attention. The Dreamcast is clearly the most powerful console ever built, but that won't last forever. Soon the PlayStation 2 will be shouting for us to take a look, and on that day, console wars will commence.
Console wars is all about who's going to be the ultimate champion, the best console, the best games. There isn't room for two.
I would probably buy Sega Dreamcast.
I'm not buying the Dreamcast, I'm waiting for PlayStation 2.
I bought the Dreamcast because I heard that you could play online.
PlayStation 2 is definitely going to be a lot better.
The Sega Dreamcast already out on the market, and everybody knows the PlayStation 2 is just on the horizon waiting to strike.
Ahead of PlayStation 2's November 2000 launch in the UK, Sega Europe bundled an Encore DV450S DVD player worth £229, along with a copy of Choo Choo Rocket and vouchers for DVDs. The bundle went on sale for just £299, the same price as a PlayStation 2, launching on November 1st 2000, little over 3 weeks before PS2's arrival here. Sadly, it had little to no effect. Despite the Encore being a far more capable DVD player than the PS2, it simply wasn't enough to persuade people to part with cash for a Dreamcast, and you can't help but wonder how much money Sega hemorrhaged putting that bundle together, given the cost of the Encore DVD player alone. Following Dreamcast's official discontinuation on March 31st 2001, the console was dropped to just £99.99, with game prices capped at $29.99, starting with the launch of the now legendary Skies of Arcadia. Try getting that for 30 quid now. However, when it comes to the Dreamcast, what matters most are the games. It's always been about the games, and the launch lineup remains one of the best of all time, and that's even with the notable omissions of both Soul Calibur and House of the Dead 2, both of which were stars of the console's US launch on $99.99. And so to close out this video, let's take a look at the 12 UK launch games, and to make it even more interesting, I've ranked them in my own personal order of worst to best. But what are your memories of the UK Dreamcast launch, or even the European nations Dreamcast launch? What was your favourite launch game? Were you at Piccadilly or Oxford Street that night? We'd love to hear from you, so get involved in the comments below. This has been James the Segaholic of the Sega Guys. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time we will see you on the Sega side.
Incoming alien surface craft. Yeah.
Quit waiting.